There's several major risk factors for heart disease and heart attacks, and it's not just cholesterol. Now, cholesterol being part of the plaques inside your heart that contributes to coronary heart disease, that's been known for over 175 years. In the 1980s, they introduced statin drugs to lower cholesterol with success. I mean, it lowered the risk of dying from heart disease. However, not everybody can take a statin. Some people get muscle pain from statins. Some people get fatigue from statins, or they have a drop in their endurance and their stamina. I had an interesting call from a friend of mine way before this whole coronavirus situation, last summer pretty much. And he's a pretty athletic guy. He goes to the gym, he plays doubles tennis, he runs once in a while. He's pretty fit. And he called me up, he was fatigued. He said he was having trouble playing tennis, he was getting tired in the gym. He didn't want to get off the couch on Saturday morning. He worked all week. And I asked him about his blood test and his trips to the doctor. He had just been to his internist. His iron was fine, his hemoglobin was fine, and his red blood cell count, etc. His iron was fine, his thyroid was fine, everything was fine. They couldn't find anything wrong with him. His lungs and his heart checked out. So I asked him, what drugs are you on? And he gave me a list of 3 drugs. One for high blood pressure, that wouldn't be an issue. But one of the drugs was rosuvastatin, a statin drug. And I said to him, well, statin drugs can make you fatigued. He goes, no, I couldn't be a rosuvastatin. I've been on it for months. I just developed the fatigue recently. I said, believe me, it could creep up on you. Because statins can interfere with the production of energy inside your cells. It's very well known. So I said, talk to your doctor and ask the doctor if you could take something else instead of the rosuvastatin. I said, there's a milder statin called pravastatin, which usually isn't an issue. Or we have sterols. So he spoke to his doctor, and his doctor agreed, stop the statin. He called me up. His energy was back within 3 days after stopping the statin. He couldn't believe it. And he spoke to his doctor, and his doctor said, yeah, I've seen this before. So now he's on my sterols with good results. He stopped the statin, he went on my sterols, and his cholesterol did not go back up. So now cholesterol is not all bad. You need cholesterol. Cholesterol is needed for your nerve health, for your muscle health. It's needed to create hormones. It's needed for a lot of things. It makes certain vitamins called isoprenoid vitamins. And it's also needed for brain health. It repairs your brain. But when the cholesterol is too high and it's used in the body, it becomes a cholesterol remnant. And then it could be easily damaged, easily oxidized. Once it's oxidized, it could become pro-inflammatory. In other words, it could cause inflammation. And where does it do that? In the arteries in your heart. It contributes to hardening of the arteries, coronary heart disease. And that's bad, because coronary heart disease is the biggest killer in the world. It's the biggest killer in America. So sterols absolutely and dependably lower your cholesterol. They're a supplement. They come from plants. It's great data. Great data. But the new data shows that sterols do a lot more than that for your heart. The sterols work so well, major academic research institutions are behind it. There's an FDA claim for it. So welcome to an update on our Sterols Lower Cholesterol episode. Hi, my name's Jerry Hickey. I'm a pharmacist who also has studied nutrition, and I'm over here at Invite Health. I'm also the scientific director. I'd like to discuss the newest findings on sterols, how they protect your heart, not just by lowering your cholesterol, but also through other important mechanisms. Please subscribe to the Invite Health podcast. Please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. And all of the information on today's episode will be linked in the episode description, and you can visit invitehealth.com/podcast for more information. So let's get going. Now, I've been a pharmacist since the 1970s. I graduated pharmacy school in 1978. I did a couple of residencies and internships. I passed my pharmacy boards in 1979 and became a licensed pharmacist throughout the country. And I've been involved with nutrition since the 1970s. So pharmacy and nutrition, I've grown up with it, and it's grown up with me. And it's come a long way. Back in pharmacy school, we didn't have statins. They were just looking into them. They were just doing the research. In fact, the first version that was coming out of Japan, they had to nix that one because it was causing tumors in dogs when they. But then Merck came out with an alternate, which was much safer, and that was the original statin. That came out in the 1980s. And there's been a lot of research on statins. And when you look at the side effects, the fatigue, the muscle aches, the drop in stamina and endurance and energy, when it's industry-funded research, the incidence of side effects are all the way down. 1 or 2% of the subjects in the studies have side effects. But when it's independent research institutions, academic research institutions, the incidence of side effects goes way up. Minimally 10% of the people in the studies, but frequently 20 to 30% of them. So it's not uncommon to have these side effects. And the sterols don't do that. So it's an interesting thing. So I want to talk about the sterols. Sterols come from plants. They look like cholesterol, but they don't act like cholesterol. And when you take them before a meal, they block the absorption of cholesterol. And your bad cholesterol goes way down very quickly. And it's been studied in hundreds of thousands of people because a lot of academic research institutions have looked into it. Drug companies have looked into it. A lot of food companies have spent major money on sterols. They add them to like orange juice. They add them to butter and margarine. Not the best way to get them, but it's better than just having butter or margarine. So the sterols dependably lower cholesterol. You take a capsule with a glass of water before the meal, like 5 minutes before. And when you eat something with cholesterol, like a pork chop or steak or sausage or bacon or something like that, or an egg, eggs are pretty healthy, it blocks the absorption of a lot of the cholesterol. Now, here's the good thing. It doesn't block the absorption of other good fats. A little bit of beta-carotene, but you get beta-carotene in all your vegetables and fruits, so that's not even an issue. But it doesn't block the absorption of vitamin D or lutein, the carotenoid pigment for your eyes, for your vision, and for your brain and your memory. It doesn't block the absorption of lycopene, that's the red stuff in tomato sauce, that's good for men's prostates and possibly good for women's breasts. But definitely good for your heart and definitely good for your skin. It doesn't block the absorption of ubiquinol, the active form of CoQ10. So it's not blocking the good fats. It doesn't block fish oils. It's blocking the cholesterol. It's blocking the LDL absorption. And they've shown that within 2 weeks, your LDL is already plummeting. Your HDL to LDL ratio is improving. So let's talk about cholesterol a little bit. When you look at your cholesterol figure, it's actually out of 3 components. LDL, which is considered the bad one. HDL, which is the good one. HDL works like a vacuum cleaner, sucking the fat out of the artery walls in your heart. Plus, it's a great anti-inflammatory. And then there's another one that you probably don't know about called VLDL. You add these 3 up, you get your total cholesterol figure. So the sterols lowers the total cholesterol and the LDL, the 2 ones that are considered bad. It works so well that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, allows us to make a claim, which is amazing. Basically, the claim says if you have enough of the sterols every day with a good diet, it lowers your risk of heart disease. Now, heart disease is the biggest killer in America. So that statement's actually pretty profound. I looked into who had faith in sterols. I went to the Mayo Clinic. They believed in it. I went to the Cleveland Clinic. They believed in it. I went to the American Heart Association, the American Medical Association, the American Nurses Association, the American Pharmaceutical Society. Every one of them believed in sterols. I went to Harvard Medical School, Yale Medical School, all their websites. NYU, UCLA, they all believed in sterols. It works. It really works. If your cholesterol really needs to get down, take one capsule 3 times a day before meals with a glass of water about 5 minutes before. But a lot of people will do fine just on one capsule twice a day before meals. Now, we've been putting up a lot of podcasts. Amanda Williams, who's trained in medical school, and myself, I'm a pharmacist nutritionist. My name's Jerry Hickey. This is brought to you by InviteHealth.com. We've been making really extremely high quality supplements for decades, for over 20 years. We have a lot of stores. We have a lot of nutritionists working there, naturopathic doctors, dietitians, clinical nutritionists. Of course, we have the website, InviteHealth.com, and a podcast. Let's just go to a quick break.
This podcast is brought to you by InviteHealth.com. For over 20 years, Invite Health has provided premium quality supplements and expert advice you can trust. Now, first-time customers can enjoy an exclusive offer. Visit invitehealth.com/podcast or click the link in this episode description. That's invitehealth.com/podcast for your exclusive offer on Invite Health products. Invite Health offers the resources you need to make important decisions about your health. Chat live with degreed healthcare professionals, get product information, and find retail locations near you at invitehealth.com. You can also learn about our new genetic testing program and our exclusive Invite Fitness Wellness program. Follow Invite Health on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast today. Now back to our episode.
Now, let's talk about sterols. You know, my wife will not do statins, and her cholesterol's a little high, and there's heart attacks in her family. So I've had her on the sterols now for several years. Let me tell you something. I'm nuts about my wife. We eat very healthy. We exercise. We live a very healthy life. But because her cholesterol was high, I was a little nervous about it because her brother already had a couple of heart attacks. Great guy. And he's actually a couple of years younger than her. But he lives up in Vermont. He's a little bit overweight and not the best diet. I hope he doesn't kill me for saying this. My wife, Ruth, her father died when she was 9 years old from a massive heart attack. I have a similar history. My father died when I was 10 from a massive heart attack. And my older brother, he's older, he's already had 2 heart attacks. I'd rather not have one either. So I'm taking Sterols, and my cholesterol's fine. I mean, it wasn't. It was a little bit elevated. My LDL was like 135. Now it's like 98, 100. It's perfect, really. But the newest data say, hey, it's more than just cholesterol. Studies are showing now that inflammation in the heart is another big risk factor for heart attacks. In fact, they're showing that a lot of people admitted to the hospitals in the United States with a heart attack, their cholesterol's fine. They might already be on a statin. Their cholesterol might be low. There's inflammation in the heart. And you can have that tested. It's just make it part of your blood test. I have it done twice a year. It's called HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive protein. Let me tell you about that. C-reactive protein is something you release from your liver when you're inflamed. Now, we don't know if it's good or bad itself. It might just be a proxy for inflammation. But we know when it's elevated, it's bad, and when it's low, it's good. So it seems to be a proxy for inflammation. And my HSCRP is about 0.3. It's like not there. 1 or less is normal. If your HSCRP in your blood test is 2, that means you're actively clogging your arteries. You're actively going through what we call atherogenicis. If it's 3 or more, that's really a disaster because not only are you clogging your arteries, but the plaque you're developing in the arteries is actually inflamed and unstable. And it's easier for it to break off and cause a heart attack or stroke. The plaque, your cholesterol plaque is kind of like, when you melt candle wax, you get those soft bubbles. That's kind of like what it's like. It's like crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. And the arteries in your heart, you basically have 2 major arteries in the left side of your heart. They're small, they're narrow. So if you stiffen them and clog them a little bit more, it becomes quite dangerous. In fact, one of them is called a widowmaker. That's how serious it is when they get clogged. So it turns out that the sterols absolutely lower your cholesterol, but they go beyond that. they also lower other risk factors. In other words, they're going to improve what we call your Framingham risk score. Your Framingham risk score is your risk of having a heart attack or stroke over the next 10 years. So let's look at some of the new data. First of all, do sterols lower your risk of a heart attack? Well, the FDA says that if you take the sterols, enough of them, and you also eat a good diet, this lowers your risk of heart disease, which is the major cause of a heart attack. And they work mostly by lowering cholesterol. So here's the British Journal of Nutrition. They're looking at a review of 124 studies. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis. It's the highest level of evidence that either something works or it doesn't work. In a meta-analysis, you get all the studies that look like what you're looking for. So in this case, do sterols lower cholesterol? And then you put them together and you see which studies are lacking bias, they're well designed, they're well reported, and they're looking at the same things you're looking at. So 124 studies. Sterols absolutely lower your cholesterol. There's no two ways about it. They lower your total cholesterol and they lower your LDL cholesterol. How much? Well, they lower LDL cholesterol 12% on average. Now, I've seen a much better return on that, to be honest with you. Because a lot of these studies, they're using sterols added to dairy or sterols added to juice or butter or margarine. So it's not being added to the best food when it comes to lowering cholesterol. And when you get these sugary foods or greasy foods, they're not the best thing for your heart. When you take sterols as a capsule, I've seen much more profound effects. I've seen very quickly, like within a month, LDL cholesterol levels tumbling by 30 points within the first month. So let's look at some of the data. And this will tell you why I'm really big on sterols. I give them to my wife. I'm taking them myself. I only take 2 a day. She only takes 2 a day. We take 1 twice a day before our meals. Now, we're not really meat eaters. We eat a bit of chicken. We eat some fish. We do eat eggs. I will eat yogurt, so I'll take it before those meals. Here's a report published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. It's from the University of California Medical Center, Davis. That would be in Sacramento. They're looking at people where they gave them sterols, but it was added to orange juice. But in this case, they reduced the amount of sugar in the orange juice. So they had orange juice with sterols or orange juice with placebo. They gave it to them every day for 8 weeks. The sterols really had an impact. They lowered the total cholesterol by 5%. They lowered LDL cholesterol, the bad one, by 10%. But they raised HDL. That's not easy to do. But they also lowered a second greasy fat called triglycerides. Triglycerides can clog the arteries in the heart and lead to a stroke or heart attack. And they also lowered inflammation in the heart. That is fantastic. They lowered HSCRP by 12%. That's fantastic. So not only are they lowering cholesterol, which is one of the major risk factors for a heart attack and for clogged arteries, but they're lowering inflammation in the arteries, which is the other big risk factor for clogged arteries and a heart attack. And they're lowering triglycerides, which is a third risk factor. Now, here's a study from researchers all over the map, all over the world. They're from Asia, they're from Australia, they're from all over Europe. But it also includes Columbia University in New York City, and it also includes the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. It's in the journal Atherosclerosis, and it was very interesting. Because they said, hey, sterols lower cholesterol, there's no doubt. But adding a sterol to a statin drug is the equivalent of doubling the dose of a statin drug. So let's go into that. A lot of people can do fine on a low dose of a statin. So if they're on a low dose of rosuvastatin or atorvastatin or simvastatin, it lowers their cholesterol and it's really not affecting their energy or their muscle health or their stamina. But the doctor might not be satisfied with the amount of cholesterol that was reduced. It might not be enough. So the doctor wants to push harder to get the cholesterol down. So the doctor is recommending doubling the dose of the drug, of the statin. That's when you start to see the problems. That's when you start to really see the fatigue and the muscle pain and the reduced endurance, etc. So what these researchers said from Columbia University and University of Texas, Southwestern Medical Center, that if you add the sterols to the statin, it's the equivalent of doubling the dose of the statin. That's because they work differently. Statins work in the liver where cholesterol is manufactured, so they lower the production of cholesterol. Sterols work in your gut. They block the absorption of cholesterol. So because it's a different mechanism, when you add one to the other, you get a much bigger payback, a much bigger payday for it. So if you're on a statin and you're doing okay, but the doctor is recommending doubling the dose, maybe you want to discuss with them using Jerry Hickey's Sterols first and see how that goes. Our Sterols are vegetable sourced. The capsules are from America. The whole product's from America. It's non-GMO. It's really a safe product. Personally, my wife and I are taking one capsule twice a day with a glass of water about 5 minutes before our meals. If your cholesterol, you really want to get it down, do one capsule 3 times a day before meals. Now, a good combination is to mix Sterols with either krill or fish oils, because then you get a bigger payback with lowering the triglycerides and the inflammation than just the Sterols alone. So thank you for tuning in to the Invite Health Podcast. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Please make sure you subscribe and please leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. We'll see you next time on another episode of the Invite Health Podcast. Thanks for listening. Thank you.